The first mistake she made was staying late that night. Mira hadn't planned to be there past 7. The laundry was folded, the glass countertops wiped clean, and the lingering scent of lemon polish hung in the air. Mrs. Lang, the head housekeeper, had already left with a warning. "Don't linger after hours, Mr. Graves doesn't like to see the help." But Mira had missed the train once again, and didn't want to spend an hour standing in the cold with nothing but the wind and her thoughts. So she stayed, just a little longer, just until the last load dried. That little longer became the moment that changed everything. The penthouse was silent as usual, 12,000 square feet of glass, marble, and loneliness. Mira moved carefully across the polished floor, placing folded towels into the linen closet, humming quietly. To herself, she was still getting used to the place, the way the air conditioning never stopped humming, how the art on the walls looked like someone had paid $1 million to hang madness. It was a different world from the one she grew up in. Back home in Georgia, a mansion like this was the kind of thing people whispered about in church. Here in New York, it was just Tuesday. And Jackson Graves, he was a ghost most days. She'd seen him once, maybe twice, always dressed like money, with eyes that didn't look at people, just through them. The staff whispered about him behind closed doors, that he was cold, dangerous, a genius, yes, but broken. Someone said he hadn't smiled in years. Another said he'd lost someone, a fiancé or maybe a brother. The stories varied, but the message was the same. Don't get involved. Mira didn't plan to. She didn't have the time. She was barely holding her life together, juggling this job, night classes, and the constant pressure of rent breathing down her neck. She wasn't here to dream. She was here to survive. That was, until the elevator dinged. She froze, clutching a fresh stack of towels to her chest as the doors opened with a soft chime. And out stumbled Jackson Graves. She could smell the alcohol before she saw the bottle in his hand. He looked wrecked. Not in the way you'd expect a billionaire to look. His shirt was half open, his black coat dragging behind him, hair disheveled like he'd just walked away from a fight, or maybe started one. His eyes were bloodshot, and his jaw was clenched like he'd been grinding his teeth all night. He didn't see her at first. He muttered something under his breath, dropped his keys on the glass bar counter, and poured himself another drink as if he hadn't already had 10. Mira didn't move. She wanted to disappear into the marble unseen, but then his eyes lifted, and they locked on her. "You're still here?" His voice was rough, tired. "I was just leaving," she whispered, unsure if she should set the towels down or keep holding them. He studied her for a moment, not with interest, not with anger, with confusion. "You're the new one," he said. She nodded. "Mira." "Right," he muttered. "Mira." He said it like he was tasting the word. Pretty name. Her cheeks warmed. "Thank you." Silence stretched between them, heavy and awkward. She should have left. She knew it. But he poured another glass, walked across the room with a drunken sort of grace and leaned against the kitchen island, watching her. "Why'd you take this job?" he asked suddenly. Mira blinked. "I needed work." "That's not a reason. That's survival." His voice was low, almost bitter. "You look like someone who wanted more." She didn't know how to respond. He was right, though. She had wanted more. So much more. "I'm working on it," she said quietly. He downed the drink and let the glass fall with a soft clink. "You're too soft for this city." "I'm not," she said, a little sharper than she intended. His lips curled slightly, almost a smile, but not quite. Then, without warning, he walked toward her. Her heartbeat quickened. She stepped back, but he didn't stop. He didn't touch her. Just hovered there, inches from her face, eyes locked onto hers, like he was trying to read her entire life in one breath. "You ever been kissed, Mira?" The question knocked the air out of her lungs. Her grip on the towels tightened. "I what?" His hand came up, not to touch her, but to brush a lock of hair that had fallen in front of her eye. His touch didn't land, but it still made her skin prickle. "I shouldn't," he murmured. "But I want to." Then slowly, like a man testing his own restraint, he leaned in and kissed her. Her first kiss. And it wasn't sweet. It wasn't gentle. It was full of hunger, whiskey, and pain. She didn't stop him. She should have. Every part of her screamed to, but it was like falling off a ledge and not wanting to hit the ground. She kissed him back. Let herself be pulled into his storm, into his arms, into that bedroom with the silk sheets and broken promises. She gave him everything, her body, her innocence, her hope. And when it was over, she lay there beside him, heart pounding, mind reeling, wondering what it meant. Then he rolled over, pulled the sheets up to his waist and muttered 6 words that cut her open. "I won't remember your name tomorrow." Just like that, as if she hadn't given him her everything. She turned her face away, eyes stinging, trying not to cry while he fell asleep next to her, breathing deeply, as if she hadn't even happened. The morning came too bright. Sunlight spilled across the white marble floors, blinding and sterile, like it was trying to cleanse the filth of the night before. Mira sat on the edge of the massive bed, pulling her clothes on in slow mechanical movements. Her body ached, not from pain, but from the weight of regret pressing down on her shoulders. She stared at her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling mirror across the room. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes were puffy, and her lips, still swollen from his kisses, trembled. She had lost something last night, something she could never get back. And he, Jackson Graves, was still asleep behind her, dead to the world, like she was just another bad dream he couldn't be bothered to remember. Her hand trembled as she picked up her shoes. She didn't know if she should say something. Leave a note. Scream. Cry. But she did none of that. She walked out. Her shoes clicked softly against the marble as she left the bedroom, past the hallway lined with million-dollar art, and slipped into the elevator with a sinking feeling she couldn't shake. As the doors closed, she caught a final glimpse of the bed, the sheets still tangled, his figure still sprawled. He wouldn't remember her name. Good, because she didn't want to remember his either. Or so she told herself. The ride down felt like a descent into a different world. By the time she reached the lobby, she had wiped her eyes, fixed her hair, and forced herself to breathe. She couldn't fall apart. Not now. She had class in 3 hours, bills to pay, a life to keep stitched together. And no one could know, especially not Mrs. Lang. But fate wasn't done with her yet, because just as she stepped out onto the sidewalk, she heard a voice behind her, low, familiar, and dangerously close. Mira. She froze. She turned slowly. And there he was. Jackson. Not drunk anymore. Not broken. Just unreadable. Dressed in black slacks, a charcoal coat and sunglasses that hid his eyes. He looked like the kind of man who made people nervous without saying a word. Her mouth went dry. "You said you wouldn't remember my name." He tilted his head slightly. "I lied." Her stomach twisted. "Why?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, stopping only when there was barely a foot of space between them. "I shouldn't have done that last night," he said quietly. "You shouldn't have been there." She looked away, her voice bitter. "I worked there. That's not what I meant." Silence, then he said it. "I don't sleep with virgins." The words hit her like ice water. Her throat tightened. "I didn't know," he added quickly, almost defensively. "Until afterward." Mira wanted to scream, throw her shoe at him, spit in his face. Instead, she whispered, "Is that supposed to make it better?" "No, but it's the truth." "And what? You tracked me down just to say that?" she snapped. He looked at her for a long, strange moment. "No, I tracked you down because I haven't stopped thinking about you." Mira stared at him. "You're lying again." "I'm not." "Then what do you want?" He hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "I don't know," he finally said. "But I need to see you again." The wind cut between them, cold and sharp. Mira shook her head. "You need a therapist, Jackson, not a maid." She turned to walk away, but he said something then, something that made her stop dead in her tracks. "I have enemies." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "I have enemies," he repeated, voice low. "And last night, There wasn't a mistake. Not entirely. Mira turned back, brows furrowed. What are you talking about? He glanced over his shoulder, scanning the street like someone was watching. You might be in danger now. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Let me guess, because I touched the cursed billionaire. I'm serious, so am I. Mira, he said, stepping closer again, his tone darker now. Last night I wasn't just drunk, I was running, and someone followed me. They know you were in that apartment. They know your name. That's why I remembered it. Her heart dropped. What the hell are you saying? He pulled something out of his coat pocket, a folded slip of paper, and handed it to her. She hesitated before opening it. Inside was a photo, grainy, shot from a distance. It was her, leaving his building. At 2:14 a.m., her knees nearly buckled. Who took this? I don't know, he said, but I know who sent it, and they don't send warnings. Mira stared at him, shaking. Why would they care about me? Because you were with me, he said, and because someone wants to use you to get to me. Use me how? He didn't answer. Instead, he looked at her with something close to regret. I need you to come with me. She took a step back. Are you insane? You'll be safer with me. I don't want to be with you. His jaw tightened. You already are. She hated him. Right then, she hated him. But she was also terrified, because deep down, she could tell he was telling the truth. And her quiet little world was about to burn. Mira didn't speak the entire car ride. She sat stiffly in the passenger seat of Jackson's black Aston Martin, her fingers curled into fists in her lap, eyes locked on the city rushing past the tinted windows. Her heart wouldn't calm down. It just kept pounding against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Maybe it wanted to run. Maybe it was smarter than her. She couldn't believe this was happening. Last night, she was a virgin maid scrubbing rich people's toilets. Now she was apparently some kind of pawn in a billionaire's dangerous game. And the man beside her, the same man who took her innocence without a second thought, was now her so-called protection. Jackson drove like he lived, fast and reckless. His jaw was clenched, his knuckles white around the steering wheel. He hadn't said much after showing her the photo, only a clipped, "We can't talk here," before practically dragging her into the car. Now they were heading toward God knows where, and every mile made Mira feel smaller. I should have never slept with you, she muttered finally. I agree, he said, eyes still on the road. His voice was flat, cold. She turned to him, fury bubbling in her throat. Then why did you? Because I was stupid. No. Don't blame it on being drunk. You knew what you were doing. I didn't know you were a virgin. Oh, well then, I guess that makes it okay, right? She snapped. You used me. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. I don't use people, Mira. I discard them. Her chest tightened. That's not better. No, he said, it's worse. The silence after that was thick and brutal. They pulled into an underground garage beneath a building she didn't recognize. Security cameras followed the car. A steel gate slid closed behind them with a mechanical growl that made her skin crawl. This is your idea of safe? She asked as he parked. No, this is just where we stop bleeding. That sentence chilled her. Jackson led her through a private elevator with no buttons. It responded only to his keycard and fingerprint. Mira followed him reluctantly, every step heavier than the last. When the doors opened, they entered another penthouse. But this one wasn't. Sleek and cold like his usual one. It was darker. The windows were tinted, the furniture older, more lived in. There were books on the shelves. Fireplaces instead of chrome. It felt human. What is this place? Well, she asked. My safe house, he said. Only 2 people in the world know it exists. She crossed her arms. And now I'm the 3rd. Which means if you breathe a word about it, I have to kill you. Her eyes widened, but before panic could rise, she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. A joke. She didn't laugh. Sit, he said, nodding toward a couch. I'm not a dog. He arched a brow. I've seen dogs with more bite than you. She sat anyway, arms still crossed. Jackson poured 2 glasses of something amber and strong, whiskey, of course, and handed her one. I don't drink, she said. You might want to start. She took the glass but didn't sip. Just held it for warmth. Then finally she asked, "Who are you really?" Jackson leaned back in the leather chair across from her. He looked older in this light. Tired, like he'd lived 10 lives already and was sick of all of them. "I'm the son of a murdered man, the heir to an empire built on blood, and the reason 5 very powerful people want me dead." She blinked. "And I'm… what? Collateral damage?" His gaze hardened. "Last night wasn't supposed to happen, but now that it did, you're involved. That photo means someone's watching me closely. Too closely." Mira's voice trembled. "What do they want?" He didn't answer immediately. He downed his drink, stared into the fireplace. "They want control, money, leverage, and now they think you're…" He trailed off. "What?" she pressed. "They think you matter to me." She froze. A laugh escaped her lips, bitter and hollow. "Oh, that's rich. I was a one-night mistake, remember?" "I know," he said, eyes not meeting hers, "but they don't. And what happens if they come for me?" He looked at her then. Something raw flashed in his eyes. "Then I'll kill every last one of them." The way he said it, so calm, so cold, made her stomach twist. Mira stood, heart thudding. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be dragged into your twisted billionaire mess. No, you asked for a job." She turned toward the mall. "Door, I'm leaving." "You can't." "The hell I can't." "Mira." His voice stopped her in her tracks. "If you leave now, you won't survive the week." She looked over her shoulder. "Is that a threat?" "No," he said. "It's a promise." Just then the lights flickered. A loud pop echoed from the hallway. Jackson was on his feet instantly. He pulled a sleek black gun from beneath the table like it was second nature. "What was that?" Mira whispered, frozen. He moved toward the wall panel, pressed a hidden switch. The windows darkened. Steel shutters dropped over the doors. Then he turned to her, eyes sharp and unblinking. "They're already here." The sound came again, this time louder, closer. A thud, followed by the unmistakable screech of metal. Dragging against metal, Mira backed up, nearly tripping over the edge of the carpet. "What's happening?" Jackson was already moving, his body all precision and ice. He crossed the room in 3 quick strides and tapped a panel on the wall. A screen slid out, showing a black and white camera feed of the stairwell just outside the apartment. 3 men, dressed in black, faces covered, armed. Mira's breath hitched. "Are they here for you? Or me?" Jackson didn't answer. Instead, he turned to a locked cabinet near the bookshelf, opened it with a fingerprint scan and pulled out another gun. This one sleek, matte silver. He tossed it to her. It hit her chest before she even realized what it was. I don't know how to use this." "For you won't need to," he said, moving toward the hallway, "unless I go down first." "What? That's not comforting, Jackson." He paused, looked over his shoulder. "Then stay behind the couch and don't move until I say." The air inside the penthouse was thick with fear. The sound of Mira's own pulse thundered in her ears as she ducked behind the leather couch, clutching the gun like it was a live grenade. Her fingers trembled. She wasn't built for this. She was supposed to be in school right now, in a classroom, not hiding in some billionaire's panic room while armed men came to kill them. A loud bang shook the walls. The front door shuddered against its hinges. Another hit and another. Then silence. Mira held her breath. And then it happened. Boom! The door exploded inward, smoke and metal flying. Mira screamed and dropped flat, her ears ringing. Jackson didn't flinch. 2 shots rang out, 1, 2, and 2 of the men dropped before they even cleared the smoke. Mira saw it all in terrifying flashes. Jackson moving like a ghost, his aim brutal, efficient, unforgiving. The 3rd man didn't go down. He dodged, rolled behind the hallway wall and returned fire. Bullets ripped through the room, glass shattered, wood splintered. Mira curled tighter into herself, arms over her head, praying the nightmare would end. She heard Jackson grunt. Once, then nothing. The silence was worse than the gunfire. Her heart dropped. "Jackson?" No answer. She crawled on her stomach, dragging herself around the edge of the couch. Her body screamed at her to stop. Every Instinct told her to run, but something louder, stronger, pulled her forward. And then she saw him. Jackson on the ground, blood on his side, gun still clutched in his hand, and the third man, moving toward him slowly, gun raised, step by step. "No!" she screamed without thinking. The man turned, and Mira pulled the trigger. She didn't aim, didn't think. She just squeezed her eyes shut and fired. The recoil nearly broke her wrist, but the shot landed. The man staggered, dropped to his knees, and fell forward with a crash. Mira sat frozen, the gun still in her hand, the room spinning around her. Jackson groaned, dragging himself into a sitting position. "You okay?" She turned to him, blinking. "You're asking me?" He winced, blood seeping through his shirt. "Just making sure you didn't faint." "Faint?" She stared at the dead man in the doorway. "I just killed someone." "Self-defense," Jackson muttered, crawling toward the cabinet again. He pulled out a small black medical kit, tossed it on the coffee table. "You'll be fine." She felt like throwing up. Her hands were still shaking. She dropped the gun and covered her mouth. This couldn't be real. She wasn't built for this. She was a maid, a student, a girl who used to dream about opening a coffee shop, not surviving a damn shootout. "You need stitches," she said numbly. "I'll live." She looked around at the chaos. "We need to call the cops." Jackson paused mid-bandage. "No." She narrowed her eyes. "No? No cops," he repeated. "That would make it worse." "How could it possibly be worse?" He sat back, bloodied and calm. "Because these men weren't thieves. They were mercenaries." Meaning someone paid them very well, and if I call the cops, they'll be bought off within the hour and we'll both end up dead. She swallowed hard. Jesus. He finally looked at her, really looked. "You saved my life. You said I wouldn't need to use it unless you went down." "I was halfway there," he said with a half-smile. "Guess you listened." She didn't smile back. Instead, she asked the question that had been circling her brain since the moment the first bullet hit the wall. "Who the hell are you, Jackson?" He sat in silence for a moment, then said, "Do you want the short answer or the kind that'll make you question your entire reality?" She glared. "The real one." He nodded slowly. "Then you better sit down, because what I'm about to tell you, it doesn't just change how you see me, it changes everything you thought you knew about the world." Mira didn't sit. She stood in the middle of the ruined penthouse, arms crossed, heart still racing, surrounded by the bodies of 3 dead men and the billionaire who had just blown her entire life off the rails. She wasn't sure if she wanted to scream or sob. Maybe both. Jackson leaned back on the couch, pressing gauze into his side with one hand, while the other reached for a small glass bottle from the bar cart. He popped the top with his teeth and swallowed the amber liquid like it was water. "You're insane," Mira said. "You know that, right?" "Probably," he said calmly, exhaling. "But I'm also alive, which right now is a miracle." She walked over, yanked the bottle from his hand. "Stop drinking." He blinked up at her, amused. "You just shot a man, and I'm the one being scolded." "You need to focus," she snapped. "You said you were going to tell me the truth, so talk." Jackson set the bottle down, his face sobering. "My father wasn't just rich, he was connected deeply to things most people only hear whispers about. Private banks, offshore accounts, arms deals, and people who don't show up in photographs." She frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means the Graves family is more than an empire. We're a network, a bloodline of power and debt, one paid in favors, in secrets and sometimes in lives." He paused, watching her for a reaction. She didn't blink. He continued. "My father made a deal with 5 families, powerful ones, the kind that make kings. And when he died, suspiciously I might add, that deal fell to me." "You inherited, what, blood money?" "I inherited enemies and obligations I didn't want to fulfill. And what happens when you don't play along? They try to take what matters most to you." She flinched. "But I'm not. You are now." The room fell silent. Mira wrapped her arms around herself, goosebumps rising on her skin. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I didn't plan on seeing you again." She looked at him sharply. Wow, you really know how to make a girl feel special. He ignored the sarcasm. But you did something I didn't expect. What's that? You stayed. Mira didn't respond. Her heart was beating a little too loud. She hated how his voice made her feel. Like part of her wanted to believe him, trust him, even after everything. You said they think I matter to you, she whispered. Is that true? His eyes darkened. That's the problem. I don't know anymore. Before she could process what that meant, the wall monitor lit up with a sharp ping. A different feed now, security footage from another location. Jackson stood quickly, wincing. No. Mira stepped beside him and froze. On the screen was her apartment building. The front door was wide open. Her neighbor, Mrs. Tilda, an older woman who lived next door, was shouting at a man in a suit. He pushed past her, then another and another. Who are they? Mira asked, voice shaking. Jackson didn't blink. Collectors. From the 5 families? He nodded. She backed away from the screen. They were looking for me? No, he said quietly. They were sending a message. The screen flickered. Her door kicked in. Her apartment ransacked. A photo frame on the wall. Her and her mother, shattered on the floor, and something written across the wall in red spray paint. Return what's his. Mira covered her mouth. Oh my God. They think you're leverage now, Jackson said, his voice hard. And if they can't use you to control me, they'll break you just to remind me who's in charge. A scream bubbled in her chest, but she swallowed. It. What do they want? She choked out. He turned to her, eyes sharp. They want you. She stepped back. What? No. Why? I'm no one. That's exactly why you're dangerous, he said. You have no ties, no record, no protection. You're a perfect target, easy to make disappear. Mira shook her head, heart racing. I want out. There is no out. There has to be. He walked up to her, eyes locked on hers. Then help me take them down. She froze. I can't fight this alone, he said, but with you, so we might have a chance. I'm not a spy. I'm not a killer. You're a survivor. That's all we need right now. Mira looked at him, really looked. The blood at his side, the pain behind his eyes, the ghosts on his shoulders. Something shifted inside her. I'll help you, she said slowly, but only under one condition. He raised a brow. What's that? You don't get to use me. Not ever again. Jackson's face darkened, not with anger but shame. Deal. But deep down, Mira had no idea what she'd just agreed to, because helping him meant stepping into a war she didn't understand. And when you stand too close to fire, you burn. The rain started around midnight, the kind of rain that soaked the world in silence, that tapped on windows like a warning, that reminded Mira she wasn't dreaming, this was real. Every second of it. She stood in front of the fireplace again, staring into the flames, arms wrapped around herself. Her apartment was destroyed, her old life reduced to nothing but broken glass and ashes. The girl who arrived in New York with a suitcase and quiet ambition was gone. Now she was something else, something she didn't recognize yet. Behind her, Jackson moved through the room with a limp, one hand pressed to the bandaged wound on his ribs. He hadn't said much since they watched the footage. He was quiet now, different from the arrogant playboy who once slurred out, I won't remember your name. Now he remembered too much. I need to show you something, he said finally. Mira turned, cautious. If it's another gun, I'm out. Not a gun. He motioned for her to follow. He led her down a narrow hallway behind a bookshelf, another hidden passage she wouldn't have noticed if she hadn't seen him push it open like he'd done it 100 times. It led into a room smaller than the others, windowless, walls lined with files and drives. A single desk sat in the middle with a laptop already glowing. What is this? She asked. My father's archive, he said. Every secret he ever kept, stored here, locked, encrypted. He sat down, typed in a password, and brought up a file marked Crown Watch. A series of names appeared. Who are they? Jackson looked up at her. The 5 families, but this is something deeper, a 6th one. Mira frowned. There's only 5. Publicly. But this one, the Crown. They don't show up in records. No last names. No faces. Just symbols. He pulled up a scan of a ring, silver with an engraved crown tipped in thorns. Mira's blood ran cold. I've seen that before. Jackson looked at her sharply. Where? She swallowed. Back home. Georgia. There was a man. He used to come by the diner where I worked in high school, wore that ring. Everyone. Said he was into shady business. We thought he was a drug lord. Jackson stood. Do you remember his name? No one ever said it. Just called him the bishop. Jackson cursed under his breath. That's one of them, he muttered. He's not just part of the Crown. He is the Crown. Mira's head spun. So what? My old life was already tangled up in this? Maybe not directly, he said, but it means they were watching you long before I touched you. She backed up. No. 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 This isn't fate. This isn't destiny. This is a coincidence. Coincidences don't send assassins. She sat down hard in the chair, hands in her hair. What the hell is happening? Jackson sat across from her, the screen casting shadows on his face. I think your connection to me isn't the only reason they want you. She looked up slowly. What do you mean? He pulled up another file. This one marked Concordia, bloodline. Inside was a scanned document, a birth certificate. Her breath stopped. Her name. Mira Ellen Hart. And underneath 2 lines she never saw before. Father. Classified. Genetic marker. C9. What the hell is C9? She whispered. Jackson didn't look at her. It's not a blood type. It's a designation. Designation for what? He finally met her gaze. Asset potential. Mira went cold. They don't want to kill you, Mira, he said slowly. They want to use you. For what? He hesitated. Whatever your father used to be. Whatever they think is in your blood. She stood abruptly. No, this is wrong. I don't even know my father. My mom she never told me anything. She raised me alone. Jackson watched her carefully. Are you sure your mother didn't know what you were? What I was, she snapped. I'm not some lab project. No, he said, but maybe you were born for a purpose. One they've been waiting to collect on. Mira turned away, heart racing. She felt sick. Her memories, her entire past suddenly felt off. What if the man with the ring, the bishop, hadn't just come to the diner by chance? What if he was checking in? A knock at the door snapped them both to attention. Not a bang. A knock. Slow. Intentional. Jackson grabbed his gun and approached. The screen checked the camera. He froze. Then, in the lowest voice she'd ever heard from him, said, Your mother's here. Mira's mouth dropped open. What? Jackson turned to her. Your dead mother. Mira's mind couldn't process what she'd just heard. Jackson's words rang out like a cruel echo. Your dead mother. It was impossible. Her mum had died 2 years ago. Stroke. The funeral was small, just Mira, a few neighbors, and a pastor who mispronounced her last name. Mira remembered the silence, the finality, the cold hands in the casket, the lifeless face she kissed goodbye. So what the hell did Jackson mean? She rushed past him toward the screen and froze. There, standing just outside the door, wearing a long black coat, hood pulled back, was the woman she had buried. Hair darker than she remembered, older, worn, but her, alive. Mira stumbled back, gasping like the wind had been knocked out of her lungs. No, that's not possible. That's not her. She passed facial recognition scan, Jackson said quietly. 3-point match on bone structure and eye biometrics. But she's dead. Apparently not. Mira's legs gave out, and she dropped to her knees. Her whole body felt like it was short-circuiting. Why would her mother fake her? Death! Why now? I have to see her, she whispered. It could be a trap. I don't care. Jackson hesitated, then walked to the door. He opened it slowly, gun behind his back. The woman didn't flinch. Mira, she said softly. eyes locking on her daughters through the doorway. Mira stepped into view. The woman took a shaky breath. "Baby." Mira's vision blurred. The ground felt uneven. Why are you alive?" she whispered. Her mother stepped inside, hands raised to show she wasn't armed. "I had to disappear. For your safety." "Safety from what?" Jackson stayed between them, tense, suspicious. Mira pushed past him. "You let me bury you," she said, voice breaking. "You let me grieve. You left me alone." Tears slipped down the woman's face. "If I hadn't, they would have taken you." Mira shook her head. "Taken me for what?" The woman looked at Jackson. "You didn't tell her yet?" "She knows about the file," he said. "She doesn't know enough," her mother said, then turned back to Mira. "You were never meant to be ordinary." Mira's stomach dropped. "Don't give me riddles. Tell me the truth." The woman stepped closer. "You were part of a trial," she said. "One of 9 children born through a secret program designed to create enhancements, intelligence, memory, reflex. You were the only one who survived without deformities." Mira felt like the walls were folding in. "No," she whispered. "You're lying. I wish I was. I was normal." "You were safe," her mother corrected, "because I ran. I took you out of the program before they could mark you. I gave you a name, a home, a life, but it was borrowed time." Mira's knees went weak again. All those years, she felt like she didn't belong. The way people sometimes stared at her like they were searching for something. The teachers who said she learned too fast, the migraines, the weird déjà vu, the way she could remember things that no one else could. She thought it was anxiety. Or trauma. Or maybe just her, but it wasn't. It was never her fault. "You're saying I'm some kind of a experiment?" Her mother nodded slowly. "No," Mira said. "No. That means everything I ever knew about myself, who I am, it's all a lie." "It wasn't a lie," her mother said. "It was a shield." Jackson remained quiet, arms crossed. Mira turned to him. "You knew," she accused. "Not all of it, but enough." "I only suspected," he said. "The moment I saw the C9 marker, I knew they'd been keeping tabs on you for a reason. You're not just leverage. You're insurance." "For what?" her mother answered this time. "For a war they've been preparing for decades." Mira backed up slowly, tears burning her eyes. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want any of this." "You were born into it," her mother said. "I didn't choose to be part of this gun," she screamed. "You don't have a choice anymore." Jackson suddenly moved to the monitor. An alert flashed on screen. Motion detection, external perimeter. "Breach," he swore under his breath. "We've got company." Her mother pulled a black drive from her coat and handed it to Jackson. "That has the list, the rest of the 9. "What?" Mira asked, heart racing. "You weren't the only survivor," her mother said. "But you're the only one they can't find because I made sure they wouldn't." Jackson plugged the drive into his computer. Names flashed on screen. Subject 1, D. Nash. Subject 3, Y. Calderon. Subject 6, Mira Ellen Hart. Subject 9, unknown. Last ping, Tokyo, Japan. Mira pointed at the last one. "Who's that?" Her mother's voice dropped to a whisper. "Your brother." Mira's world shattered again. "Brother?" she choked. "I don't have a brother." "You did," her mother said. "Until the program separated you at birth. You were twins." Before Mira could speak, the screen went black. System offline. Jackson stood instantly. "They found us." Gunfire erupted outside. Glass exploded. Her mother grabbed Mira's hand. "You need to run." "No!" Mira shouted. Jackson handed her a weapon. "This time you fight." The world went red. Sparks rained down from the ceiling as the lights died. Sirens screamed from the wall panels. The sound of boots, multiple, fast, echoed through the narrow hallway. Whoever they were, they came prepared. Mira ducked low, adrenaline thundering through her veins. She held the weapon tighter this time. No shaking, no hesitation. Something inside her had shifted. Whatever fear had paralyzed her before, it was still there. But now, it had a partner. Focus. Jackson's voice cut through the noise. We get to the sub-level garage. There's a tunnel that leads to the East River. We move fast or we die slow. Her mother shoved something into Mira's coat. A tracker. You get separated, I'll find you. Don't lose it. What about you? Mira shouted. I'll cover the back. No, Mira. Her mother grabbed her face, eyes wild but full of love. You were meant for more than survival. Go become what they fear. Then she turned, already firing down the corridor, forcing Mira to run. And she ran. With Jackson at her side, bleeding but swift, Mira moved like a shadow through the smoke-filled hallway. Alarms kept wailing, and doors slid shut behind them, one by one. The system was failing, or maybe someone was controlling it from outside. Either way, it was falling apart. Left! Jackson shouted, pulling her around a corner. They passed a broken security door. The bodies of 2 armed guards sprawled. On the floor, shot clean through the head. Mira didn't flinch this time. She didn't even slow down. They reached the sub-level just as the first grenade hit. The blast knocked them off their feet. Mira's ears rang as concrete cracked behind her. Jackson dragged her behind a steel column just in time to avoid another burst of gunfire from the stairwell. We're pinned, she shouted. Not for long, Jackson said, yanking a pin from his own belt. He tossed a smoke grenade forward. Thick grey clouds filled the garage. Now! They ran through it, blind but determined, toward the far side, where a black SUV with open doors waited, engines still running. Jackson slammed into the driver's seat. Mira, get in! She dove inside as bullets ripped into the car's frame. Who the hell leaves a car running in an attack? I do, he said, slamming the gas. They sped through a hidden tunnel that curved downward into the earth. The walls were tight, just enough for one vehicle. It felt like they were diving into a different world. And maybe they were. The ride was quiet for a moment. Mira stared at her reflection in the car window. Her face was pale, smeared with smoke and blood. But her eyes, they were different now. Sharper, not afraid, ready. Tell me more about him, she said softly. Who? Jackson asked. My brother. He looked at her carefully. I only know what's in the file. They called him Subject 9, disappeared when he was 5, showed irregular enhancements, untraceable ever since. Why haven't they found him? Because he doesn't want to be found. Mira nodded slowly. Then I'll find him. Jackson raised a brow. That's dangerous. So is breathing. He smiled at that. Not a full smile, just the edge of one. They emerged from the tunnel beneath a warehouse near the East River. Jackson parked the SUV behind an old freight container. We can stay off-grid here for a few hours. Mira stepped out and let the night air hit her. Cold, free, for now. She turned to him. You think my mother survived? Jackson's face darkened. If she's like you, yeah. She survived. You mean a freak? He stepped closer. I mean a weapon. She didn't flinch. He handed her a black phone, untraceable. She gave you the tracker, but if they jam that, you'll need backup. I'll teach you how to scramble signals tomorrow. She looked at the phone, then him. Why are you helping me? Because they made me a killer, he said. But they made you something worse. Worse? They made you important. Mira stared at him for a long moment, her voice low. Caillou said once that you discard people. I don't discard weapons. She didn't know whether to be insulted or honored, but in a strange way, it fit, because she didn't feel like a girl anymore, or a maid, or someone who needed saving. She felt like the one who was about to break everything apart. The phone buzzed once, no name, just a message. Mira, if you're reading this, it means I'm alive, don't look back. Find your brother, trust no one, not even Jackson. Her breath caught. It was from her mother. Jackson glanced over. Everything all right? She stared at the screen, then slowly turned it off. Yeah, she lied, everything's fine. But inside her mind a new storm had started, because the last part of the message, the part about not trusting him, That would have sounded paranoid 2 days ago. But now? Now it sounded like a warning she might have needed too late. To be continued. Let me know if you want part 2, where Mira goes after her twin, uncovers the truth about what Jackson really is, and finds out who's been pulling the strings since before she was born. Ready for the next saga?